Hey guys, tonight we slip into the shadowy hills of ancient Italy, where the Etruscans, a civilization wrapped in mystery, carved their mark on history. Picture yourself standing on a misty ridge, the air thick with the scent of olive groves and wood smoke. Below, terracotta rooftops gleam under a crescent moon, and strange, lilting music drifts from a temple carved into the rock. These are the Etruscans, sophisticated, enigmatic, and gone before Rome truly rose. You're about to unravel what made them so influential, but fair warning, piecing together their story is like solving a puzzle with half the pieces missing. You probably won't survive this without a few head-scratching moments. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop a comment with your location and local time. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start in the 9th century BCE, trudging through the fertile plains of what's now Tuscany. The Etruscans, or Ravenna as they called themselves, seemed to materialize out of the fog of prehistory. Historians still argue whether they were native Italians or migrants from the eastern Mediterranean, maybe Anatolia. The Greek historian Herodotus claimed they sailed from Lydia, fleeing famine, but DNA studies lean toward local roots, with a twist of foreign influence. It's like they're the ancient equivalent of a band that won't reveal their origin story. Cool, but frustrating. What's clear is they weren't just another Iron Age tribe. By 800 BCE, they're building sophisticated villages, smelting bronze like pros, and trading with folks as far off as Phoenicia. That's the mainstream fact. Their early tech and trade gave them a head start over their neighbors. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some Etruscan graves from this period contain tiny bronze figurines of warriors with exaggerated, features. Let's just say they weren't shy about celebrating masculinity. Were these fertility charms or just ancient action figures? No one's sure, but they're a reminder these people had a sense of humor. You can almost imagine an Etruscan craftsman chuckling as he molded one, thinking, "This'll confuse someone in a couple millennia." And it has. You're walking through one of their early settlements now, maybe at Tarquinia. The houses are sturdy, with stone foundations and timber roofs, not the wattle and daub shacks of lesser tribes. You notice drainage systems, actual urban planning. This is no accident. The Etruscans are obsessed with order, a trait they'll later pass to Rome. But it's not all serious. At a nearby feast, you spot clay cups painted with dancers who look suspiciously like they're attempting an ancient version of the moonwalk. Okay, maybe not, but their art has this lively, human spark. The big question is why they rose so fast. Their land's rich, volcanic soil, perfect for crops, hills packed with iron and copper. You're standing on a gold mine, literally, but it's their mindset that sets them apart. They're not just farmers, they're innovators, blending local know how with tricks learned from Greek and Phoenician traders. You can smell the ambition in the air, mixed with roasting boar from a nearby fire. They're building something big, and you're about to see how. This origin story isn't just about where they came from, it's about what they became. Their knack for tech, trade, and a touch of weirdness laid the foundation for a civilization that had shaped Rome and beyond. You're not just walking through history, you're stepping into the blueprint of Western CV. And trust me, it only gets wilder from here. You're now strolling through the heart of an Etruscan city-state around 700 BCE, where the air buzzes with the clatter of workshops and the chatter of merchants. The Etruscans have transformed their early villages into something extraordinary, sprawling urban centers like Veii, Tarquinia, and Cerveteri, each a powerhouse in its own right. These aren't just towns, they're the beating heart of a civilization that's flexing its muscles across central Italy. You're walking on paved streets, a rarity for the time, and you can't help but feel the pulse of ambition in every stone. This is where the Etruscans' urban prowess takes center stage, shaping not just their world, but the future of Rome itself. The mainstream fact here is undeniable. The Etruscans were master city planners. Take Veii, for instance. It's got walls thick enough to stop an army, aqueducts channeling water, like some ancient engineering flex, and a grid-like layout that screams, "We've got this." By 650 BCE, these city-states are independent but linked, like a loose confederation, each ruled by a king or elite council. You're passing a massive gate now, flanked by statues of snarling lions. Intimidating, sure, but also a bit extra, like the Etruscans are saying, "Don't mess with us," but also admire our style. This urban sophistication directly influenced Rome's early development. The eternal city's first walls and sewers owe a nod to Etruscan know-how. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some Etruscan cities had underground tunnels, not just for drainage, but possibly for secret rituals or escape routes. Archaeologists found one in Cerveteri, lined with cryptic symbols, and no one's quite sure if it was a priest's hideout or an ancient panic room. You can imagine an Etruscan noble whispering, "Meet me in the creepy tunnel at midnight." And it's equal part spy movie and ghost story. Historians still argue whether these tunnels were practical or sacred. Maybe both, knowing the Etruscans' knack for blending the mundane with the mystical. You're in Tarquinia's marketplace now, dodging carts piled with amphorae of wine and olive oil. The Etruscans aren't just building cities, they're creating hubs of culture and power. Each city-state has its own vibe. Vei's all about defense. Cervitaries got those wild tombs we'll get to later. And Tarquinia's obsessed with art. You spot a potter painting a vase with a scene of wrestlers, and you swear one looks like he's about to tap out. It's these little human touches that make their cities feel alive, not just impressive. The secret to their urban success? Resources and attitude. Tuscany's hills are stuffed with metals, and the Etruscans mine them like they're racing for a deadline. They're also not afraid to borrow ideas. Greek-style temples, Phoenician ship designs, and make them their own. You're standing by a temple now, its wooden columns painted red and blue, and it's like a proto-Roman Capitol Hill. But don't get too comfy. The Etruscans are fiercely independent, and rivalries between city-states can spark into skirmishes. You hear a trader muttering about a feud with Volsci over trade routes, and you're reminded, peace here is as fragile as that clay cup you almost tripped over. These cities aren't just physical spaces. They're the Etruscan statement to the world. They're saying, we're here, we're advanced, and we're not going anywhere. That confidence ripples outward, influencing neighbors like the early Romans who are watching and learning. You're not just walking through a city, you're seeing the blueprint for an empire, one that Rome will eventually claim. And as you leave the market, dodging a kid chasing a stray goose, classic Etruscan chaos, you know the story's about to get even deeper. You're standing in a torchlit Etruscan temple, the air heavy with incense and the faint hum of chants. It's around 650 BCE, and you're deep in the heart of their religious world, where every lightning bolt, bird flight, and liver spot, yes, liver, holds cosmic meaning. The Etruscans' beliefs aren't just rituals. They're the glue holding their society together, guiding everything from politics to dinner plans. You're about to see how their spiritual obsession shaped their influence, not just in their time, but in the DNA of Rome's own sacred traditions. The mainstream fact is clear. Etruscan religion was a complex system of divination and ritual that directly influenced Roman practices. They believed the gods spoke through nature, so priests, called haruspices, read omens in animal entrails or storm clouds. You're watching one now, slicing a sheep's liver with the focus of a surgeon, muttering about Jupiter's mood. This isn't just superstition. It's a science to them, codified in sacred texts like the Libri Ritualis. Rome later adopted this with its augurs and omens, proof the Etruscans' spiritual playbook outlasted their cities. You can almost hear a Roman senator, centuries later, double checking a pigeon's flight path before a vote, and it's pure Etruscan vibes. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some Etruscan rituals involved talking to ancestors via creepy bronze masks worn during funerals. Picture a mourner slipping on a mask of Great Grandpa Tarchon, channeling his voice to bless the family, or maybe just to complain about the wine. Archaeologists found these masks in tombs, and they're equal parts spooky and heartfelt, like the Etruscans couldn't bear to let their dead fully go. Historians still argue whether these were purely symbolic, or if the Etruscans believed that the masks literally summoned spirits. Either way, it's a wild glimpse into their world. You're moving through the temple now, past altars piled with offerings, figs, honey, a bronze statuette of a goddess who looks like she's judging your outfit. The Etruscans worship a triad, Tina, Uni, and Minerva, like a proto-Jupiter, Juno, Minerva combo. You notice how every ritual, from blessing a new house to launching a war, starts with a nod to the gods. It's intense, but it gives their society structure. You're dodging a priestess sprinkling salt on the floor, and you can't help but think she's overdoing it. Salt's pricey, lady. But that's the Etruscan way. Nothing's too much for the divine. Their religion isn't just about temples. It's woven into daily life. You pass a farmer muttering a prayer before planting barley, and a merchant checking a clay tablet for the lucky day to sail. This obsession with divine will makes them disciplined, unified, and a little paranoid. Imagine living where a wonky cloud could cancel your wedding, but it also fuels their influence. Neighboring tribes, including early Romans, see this and think, these guys have the god's phone number. It's no coincidence Rome's first temples and priesthoods mirror Etruscan designs. As you leave the temple, you spot a kid tossing knucklebones in a game that doubles as a mini divination. You're tempted to join, but the priest's giving you side-eye, probably because you stepped on his sacred chalk line. Joking aside, this spiritual intensity is why the Etruscans matter. Their rituals didn't just guide their lives, they laid a foundation for Rome's state religion, which propped up an empire. You're not just smelling incense, you're breathing the air of a civilization that shaped history's soul. And trust me, their story's about to get even more vivid. You're wandering through a necropolis outside Cerveteri, around 600 BCE, where the Etruscans' artistic genius lights up the darkness of their tombs. The air is cool, damp with the scent of earth and ancient stone, and you're surrounded by mounds that look like hobbit homes but house the dead. These aren't just graves. They're galleries of vibrant frescoes, intricate jewelry, and sculptures that pulse with life. You're about to see how the Etruscans' art wasn't just pretty, it was a cultural juggernaut that shaped Rome's aesthetic and beyond. The mainstream fact is rock solid. Etruscan art, especially their tomb paintings and terracotta sculptures, was a cornerstone of early Italian culture. You're staring at a fresco in the Tomb of the Leopards. Dancers twirl, musicians jam, and a banquet scene looks like the ancient equivalent of a VIP party. These works, dating back to the 7th century BCE, show a mastery of color and movement that influenced Roman wall art and mosaics. The Romans didn't just copy, they built on Etruscan techniques like realistic portraiture, which you can trace straight to those toga-wearing busts in every museum. It's like the Etruscans handed Rome a paintbrush and said, "Don't mess this up." Now, for the quirky tidbit. Some Etruscan sarcophagi have couples sculpted on top, lounging like they're at a picnic, not dead. You're looking at one now, a husband and wife, smirking as if they're in on a cosmic joke. Archaeologists think these reflect the Etruscans' chill attitude toward death, but there's a debate. Were they showing off eternal love, or just flexing their status? Historians still argue whether these sculptures were spiritual or social flexes, maybe both, knowing the Etruscans' knack for double meanings. You can't help but chuckle. It's like they're saying, yeah, we're dead, but we're still fabulous. You're moving deeper into the tomb now, your torch catching glints of gold jewelry, earrings shaped like tiny chariots, necklaces with amber beads that smell faintly of pine. The craftsmanship is insane. These folks were working with tools cruder than your average craft store kit. You spot a bronze mirror engraved with a goddess who's definitely giving you attitude, and you're half convinced it's cursed. Kidding, mostly. But this art isn't just decorative, it's a time machine. The scenes show Etruscan life, hunting, feasting, even board games, preserving their world in Technicolor. What makes their art so influential? It's the vibe. Unlike the stiff poses of early Greek art, Etruscan figures move. You're eyeing a clay statue of Apollo, mid-stride, like he's about to drop a divine mixtape. This dynamism, this human spark, leaks into Roman art, giving it warmth. Plus, the Etruscans loved storytelling. Every vase, every tomb wall tells a tale, from myths to daily life. You're tracing a painted boar hunt now, and you swear the artist snuck in a dog that looks like it's judging the hunter's aim. That's the Etruscan touch. Serious skill, sly humor. Their art also spreads through trade. Etruscan vases pop up in Greece, Carthage, even Egypt. You're imagining a Greek trader unpacking a crate, muttering, "These Italians are extra," but they buy it, and the style spreads. Back in the necropolis, you're struck by how these tombs aren't gloomy. They're celebrations. The Etruscans saw death as a party, and their art screams, "We lived well." That optimism, that flair, seeps into Rome's temples, theaters, and public squares. You're not just seeing paintings, you're witnessing the roots of Western art's soul. As you step back into the sunlight, dodging a stray pebble, clumsy much, you know their story's about to get even richer. You're aboard an Etruscan ship, rocking gently on the Tyrrhenian Sea around 600 BC. The salt air sharp, and the horizon dotted with foreign sails. The deck creaks under your feet, piled with amphorae of wine and ingots of copper, as merchants shout orders in a tongue you barely grasp. The Etruscans aren't just landlubbers with fancy tombs. They're maritime hustlers, weaving a web of trade that links the ancient world from Greece to North Africa. You're about to see how their commercial savvy made them a powerhouse, spreading their influence far beyond Italy's shores. The mainstream fact is straightforward. The Etruscans were trade titans, dominating Mediterranean commerce by the 7th century BCE. Their city-states, like Populonia and Vetulonia, churned out metal goods, bronze weapons, iron tools that were hot commodities. You're watching a sailor unload a crate of Etruscan pottery in a Greek port now, its black and red designs catching every eye. This trade wasn't just about cash. It spread Etruscan culture from art to tech, influencing neighbors like the early Romans, who learned shipbuilding and market tricks from them. Rome's port at Ostia, it's got Etruscan DNA all over it. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Etruscan shipwrecks, like one off Giglio Island, held jars of preserved fish sauce. Think ancient ketchup, but funkier. This garum was a delicacy across the Mediterranean, and the Etruscans were its top chefs. You're imagining a Carthage trader sniffing a jar, muttering, "This stuff's worth its weight in silver." Historians still argue whether garum was a luxury or a staple. Did it grace elite tables or just spice up sailors' gruel? Either way, it's a reminder the Etruscans knew how to brand their quirks. You're back on the ship, weaving through a bustling port at Pyrgi, one of their key trade hubs. The docks are chaos. Phoenician traders haggle over tin. Greeks offer olive oil, and an Etruscan merchant's showing off a bronze helmet like it's the latest iPhone. This isn't just commerce, it's a cultural swap meet. You spot a clay tablet with Greek letters next to Etruscan script, proof they're borrowing ideas as fast as they're selling goods. It's like the ancient version of globalization, and the Etruscans are the CEOs. Their trade secret? Location and hustle. Central Italy's a sweet spot. Close to Greece, North Africa, and emerging Rome. They've got rivers like the Tiber for inland routes and ports like Pyrgi for sea traffic. You're eyeing a map scratched on a clay shard, and it's clear They know every shortcut from Sardinia to Sicily, but it's their ambition that seals the deal. They're not content with local markets. They're shipping wine to Egypt, importing amber from the Baltic. You're half tempted to sign up as a deckhand, but the captain's glare says, "Don't touch my amphorae." This trade network does more than fill Etruscan coffers. It spreads their influence. Greek potters start mimicking Etruscan designs. Phoenicians adopt their metalworking tricks. Even Rome, still a scrappy village, is watching, learning how to turn a riverbank into a trade hub. You're smelling profit in the air, mixed with that fish sauce. It's growing on you. But there's tension too. Rival cities like Carthage are eyeing the same routes, and you hear whispers of pirate raids. Typical Etruscan drama. Big wins, bigger risks. As you step off the ship, dodging a slippery patch of spilled oil, smooth move, you realize their trade wasn't just about goods. It was about ideas, styles, and power. The Etruscans aren't just selling pottery, they're exporting a civilization, and their story's about to take a surprising turn. You're weaving through a lively Etruscan banquet in Tarquinia around 550 BCE, where the air hums with laughter, clinking cups, and the scent of roasted boar. The room's aglow with torchlight, and you're struck by the women reclining alongside the men, confident, adorned in gold, and very much running the show. Unlike most ancient societies, Etruscan women aren't sidelined. They're front and center, wielding influence that raises eyebrows from Greece to Rome. You're about to discover how their surprising freedoms made the Etruscans a cultural outlier and left a subtle but lasting mark on history. The mainstream fact is well documented. Etruscan women enjoyed freedoms rare for their time, participating in public life in ways that shocked their neighbors. Tomb paintings, like the ones you saw back in Cerveteri, show women dining with men, not tucked away in separate quarters. Inscriptions reveal some held property, led religious rites, and even had their own names, not just so and so's wife. You're watching a woman now, draped in a crimson gown, toasting a guest with a clay cup. She's no wallflower. This openness influenced early Rome, where elite women, like those in the Tarquin dynasty, wielded political clout, likely inspired by Etruscan models. It's a quiet legacy, but it's there in Rome's founding families. Now, for the quirky tidbit, some Etruscan mirrors, yep, those bronze ones from the tombs, are engraved with scenes of women practicing sports like discus throwing. Picture an Etruscan lady yeeting a discus while her husband cheers or cowers. These mirrors, found in women's graves, suggest athleticism wasn't just for men. Historians still argue whether these scenes were aspirational or actual. Did Etruscan women really compete, or was this just artistic flexing? Either way, it's a far cry from Greek women stuck in the kitchen, and you're low-key jealous of their game. You're mingling at the banquet now, dodging a servant, balancing a tray of figs and cheese. The women here aren't just guests, they're hosts, decision makers. You overhear one, maybe a priestess, debating a trade deal with a merchant, her voice as sharp as the dagger at her belt. Etruscan society is an feminist utopia. Let's not get carried away, but it's leagues ahead of its peers. Women could inherit wealth, commission tombs, and join religious cults, like the one dedicated to Uni, the goddess you met back in that temple. You're noticing their jewelry, intricate fibulae, earrings like tiny chandeliers, and it's clear they're not just wearing status, they're owning it. What's behind this? Partly, it's practical. Etruscan city-states needed all hands on deck, men and women, to run their trade empires and religious rites. But it's also cultural. The Etruscans see life as a partnership, not a patriarchy. You're chuckling at a fresco on the wall, a couple dancing, the woman leading, and the guy looks thrilled to follow. It's like they're saying, yeah, she's the boss, and we're cool with it. This vibe unsettles visitors like the Greeks, who later write snarky accounts of scandalous Etruscan women. You're thinking, lighten up, Aristotle. They're just living. Their influence isn't just local. As Rome grows, Etruscan women's roles inspire its matrons, who negotiate marriages and sway politics behind the scenes. You're imagining a Roman senator's wife, channeling that Tarquinia priestess, twisting her husband's arm for a vote. But back at the banquet, things are getting rowdy. A kid's tossing olive pits, and you nearly take one to the eye. Nice aim, kid. It's a reminder. Etruscan women aren't just powerful. They're part of a vibrant, chaotic society that's shaping the future. As you slip out, dodging another pit, you know their story's about to get even bolder. You're standing on a dusty hill overlooking an Etruscan camp around 550 BCE, where bronze-clad warriors sharpen their spears under a blazing sun. The air smells of leather and sweat, and you can feel the tension as they prepare for a skirmish with a rival city-state, maybe Volci. The Etruscans aren't just artists and traders. They're fighters with a military machine that's as disciplined as it is fierce. You're about to see how their strategies and gear shape not only their own battles, but the Roman legions that would one day dominate the world. The mainstream fact is undeniable. Etruscan military organization laid key foundations for Rome's army. By the 6th century BCE, they're using phalanx formations, tight rows of spearmen, shields locked, borrowed from the Greeks but tweaked with Etruscan flair. You're watching a unit drill now, their bronze helmets gleaming, each man moving like a cog in a machine. Their weapons, short swords, javelins, and those iconic round shields influenced Rome's early arsenal. The Romans didn't just copy, they scaled it up, but the Etruscan blueprint is clear in their centuriate structure and love of fortified camps. You can almost see a young Romulus taking notes. Now for the quirky tidbit. Some Etruscan warriors wore armor decorated with tiny bronze bells, jingling like ancient wind chimes as they marched. You're hearing them now, a faint tinkle that's half intimidating, half ridiculous, like they're daring enemies to laugh. Found in tombs, these bell armors puzzle archaeologists. Were they for morale, signaling, or just showing off? Historians still argue whether the bells were practical or purely ceremonial, but you're picturing a soldier strutting into battle, thinking, I sound fabulous. It's peak Etruscan, deadly, but with style. You're closer to the camp now, weaving past chariots, parked like ancient Ferraris. The Etruscans love mobility. Cavalry units scout the hills, and their chariots, painted with snarling beasts, are as much for intimidation as combat. You spot a commander barking orders, his cloak pinned with a gold fibula that probably costs more than a village. Their armies aren't huge, but they're versatile, built for the rocky terrain of central Italy. You're noticing their fortifications, stone walls, ditches, like mini veis, a trick Rome will perfect in its castra. What makes their military tick? Discipline and tech. Etruscan smiths are wizards with bronze and early iron, crafting swords that slice through lesser metals. You're eyeing a blade now, its grip carved with a wolf, and it's as much art as weapon. They also lean on religion. Remember those haruspices from the temple? They're here, reading omens before battle, ensuring the gods are Team Etruscan. You're chuckling at a soldier offering a chicken to a priest, muttering, hope it's a good liver, or we're toast. But this mix of faith and strategy works. It keeps morale high and scares rivals who think the Etruscans have divine backup. Their influence on Rome is subtle but deep. The Romans adopt not just Etruscan weapons, but their obsession with military ritual, triumphs, eagle standards, even the idea of a citizen soldier. You're imagining a Roman legionary centuries later, marching in a formation that started here. But it's not all rosy. Etruscan city-states often fight each other, wasting strength. You overhear a scout grumbling about Tarquinius' latest feud, and it's like, guys, save it for the real enemies. Typical Etruscan drama. Brilliant, but messy. As you leave the camp, dodging a stray javelin, watch it, buddy. You realize their military wasn't just about winning battles. It was about building a system. The Etruscans taught Rome how to fight smart, and that legacy outlasts their spears. Their story's about to take a linguistic twist, so brace yourself. You're hunched over a weathered stone tablet in a dimly lit Etruscan archive around 500 BCE, the air thick with dust and the faint tang of ancient ink. Scratched into the surface are cryptic symbols, curls, zigzags, and lines that look like a code you're desperate to crack. This is the Etruscan language, a riddle that's baffled scholars for centuries, defying translation and hiding the innermost thoughts of a civilization. You're about to grapple with this linguistic enigma, uncovering why it's both a barrier and a key to the Etruscans' enduring mystique. The mainstream fact is clear. The Etruscan language, written in a script derived from Greek, is one of the ancient world's great unsolved puzzles. By the 6th century BCE, they're inscribing everything: tombs, mirrors, even wine cups, with their alphabet. You're tracing a bronze plaque now, the Tabula Cortonensis, listing what might be a property deal or a ritual text. Unlike Latin, which Rome spread like wildfire, Etruscan resists decoding. We can read the letters, but not the meaning. Only about 250 words, like clan, son, or tur, to give, are understood. This linguistic isolation limited their direct influence, but gave Rome a blank slate to build its own identity, free of Etruscan texts. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Etruscan inscriptions are written in boustrophedon, where lines alternate left to right and right to left, like a snake slithering across the page. You're squinting at one now, your head tilting as you try to follow it. Honestly, it's giving you a headache. Was this a practical choice to save space, or just the Etruscans being extra? Historians still argue whether boustrophedon was a flex of their writing skills or a nod to sacred symmetry, but you're half convinced they did it to mess with future archaeologists. Spoiler, it worked. You're moving through the archive now, past shelves of clay tablets and rolled linens, each marked with that elusive script. The Etruscans wrote on everything: votive offerings, sarcophagi, even a gold tablet from Pyrgi mixing Etruscan and Phoenician, like an ancient bilingual contract. You're tempted to pocket a shard for study, but the archivist's glare says, don't even think about it. Their language wasn't just for records. It was sacred. Priests used it for rituals, like those liver reading sessions back in the temple, and it tied their culture together. You're imagining a poet reciting verses, the words lost to time, and it's haunting. Why's the language so tough to crack? It's not related to Latin or Greek. It's a loner, maybe tied to pre-Indo-European tongues. You're staring at a mirror engraved with Tenia, their Jupiter, but the rest is gibberish. No Rosetta Stone, no bilingual dictionaries, just fragments. This mystery frustrates but fascinates. It's why the Etruscans feel like a secret club. Rome, meanwhile, sidesteps this, adopting Latin and leaving Etruscan to fade. You're chuckling at the irony. The Etruscans gave Rome engineering and religion, but their words got left on the cutting room floor. Their script's influence is indirect, but real. The Etruscan alphabet shaped early Latins, giving us letters like F and R. You're picturing a Roman scribe, unknowingly using Etruscan ABCs to jot down laws. But the language's opacity preserves their aura. Without it, they'd be less mythical. As you step out, nearly tripping on a loose tile, graceful, right? You realize this linguistic fog isn't just a barrier, it's a shield, keeping the Etruscan soul just out of reach. Their story's about to pivot to Rome's rise, and it's a big one. You're standing on the banks of the Tiber, around 500 BCE, where Rome's muddy village is starting to look like a city, and the Etruscans' fingerprints are everywhere. The air's thick with the scent of wet clay and ambition, as workers haul stones for a new temple that screams Etruscan style. This is the moment their influence on Rome crystallizes, from engineering to governance, shaping a scrappy settlement into a future empire. You're about to witness how the Etruscans didn't just nudge Rome, they practically built its foundations. The mainstream fact is undeniable. The Etruscans profoundly shaped early Rome's infrastructure and institutions. By the 6th century BCE, Etruscan kings like the Tarquins rule Rome, bringing urban planning from cities like Veii. You're watching workers dig the Cloaca Maxima, a massive sewer system inspired by Etruscan drainage tech. Gross, but game-changing. They're also erecting the Temple of Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill, its terracotta roof tiles straight out of Tarquinia's playbook. These projects aren't just practical, they're power moves, showing Rome's neighbors it's no backwater. The Etruscans' gift of engineering and civic pride becomes Rome's launchpad. Now, for the quirky tidbit. Some Etruscan-inspired Roman rituals involved priests dancing in weird, synchronized steps, wearing pointy hats called apexes. You're picturing a priest now, shuffling like he's in an ancient flash mob, and it's equal parts solemn and silly. These dances, tied to Etruscan religion, pop up in Rome's early cults. Historians still argue whether they were purely sacred or a way to hype up crowds. Maybe both, given the Etruscans' flair for drama. You're half tempted to join, but your dance moves are more awkward sway than divine groove. You're moving through Rome's Forum now, a bustling square that owes its layout to Etruscan city-states. The Etruscans taught Rome how to organize, paved streets, public spaces, even a proto-senate. You overhear a merchant griping about taxes, and it's like, some things never change. Their governance wasn't democratic, but it was structured, with kings and councils balancing power. Rome tweaks this, ditching kings for consuls, but the Etruscan model of elite rule lingers. You're noticing their religious influence too. Augurs scan the skies, just like those haruspices back in the temple, ensuring every decision's God approved. What's the secret sauce? The Etruscans' knack for blending practicality with spectacle. They give Rome tools, arches, aqueducts, organized armies, but also a sense of destiny. You're standing by a new bridge, its stonework, Etruscan perfect, and you can feel Rome's confidence growing. They're not just copying, they're absorbing, adapting. Even their myths, like Romulus and Remus, get an Etruscan spin. Some say the wolf story echoes Etruscan totem worship. You're chuckling at a kid nearby, pretending to howl, and you wonder if he's channeling that ancient vibe. This influence isn't without friction. Romans start resenting Etruscan dominance, especially after the Tarquins get too tyranny. You hear whispers of rebellion, a sign Rome's ready to stand alone. But the Etruscans' legacy is baked in. Every arch, every ritual, every paved road screams their name. You're imagining a Roman centuries later, boasting about the eternal city, oblivious to its Etruscan roots. As you dodge a cart of bricks, watch it, pal, you realize this is the Etruscans' peak moment, their influence cementing Rome's rise, but their own stories about to take a bittersweet turn. You're walking through the fading streets of Veii around 400 BCE, where the once vibrant Etruscan city feels quieter, its walls scarred from recent battles. The air carries the scent of charred wood and uncertainty as Rome's shadow looms larger. The Etruscans, who shaped so much of the ancient world, are slipping from their peak, their city-states crumbling under pressure. You're about to explore their decline and the legacy they left behind, a whisper of brilliance that echoes through Rome and into Western civilization itself. The mainstream fact is clear. The Etruscans' decline began in the 5th century BCE as Rome and other rivals overpowered them. After centuries of dominance, their city-states, Tarquinia, Cerveteri, Veii, faced internal feuds and external threats. You're standing where Rome besieged Veii in 396 BCE, a brutal campaign that ended with the city's fall. Rome didn't just conquer, it absorbed Etruscan land, tech, and culture, repurposing their engineering and rituals for its own empire. By 300 BCE, most Etruscan cities are Romanized, their independence gone, but their influence woven into Rome's DNA. From aqueducts to augury. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Etruscan tombs from this period were looted by their own people, Archaeologists found graves in Volci with jewelry and pottery hastily removed, maybe to fund wars or flee invaders. You're imagining a desperate Etruscan noble sneaking into a tomb at midnight, muttering, "Sorry, Grandma, I need your necklace." Historians still argue whether this was survival driven pragmatism or a sign of cultural collapse, likely both, showing how even their sacred spaces weren't safe. It's a poignant reminder of their fall, and you're feeling bit like you're trespassing on their grief. You're moving through Vei's ruins now, past crumbling temples and empty markets. The Etruscans' decline wasn't sudden. It was a slow bleed. Their city-states never united, bickering over trade routes and borders, like that feud you overheard back in the camp. Meanwhile, Rome grew ruthless, its legions honed by Etruscan tactics, but backed by a unified vision. You're noticing abandoned workshops where potters once painted those lively frescoes you saw in Cerveteri. It's eerie, like the city's holding its breath, waiting for a comeback that won't happen. What caused this? Partly geography. Etruria's rich hills made them targets. Partly hubris. They underestimated Rome, thinking it a scrappy upstart. You're chuckling at the irony. The Etruscans taught Rome how to build bridges, only for Rome to cross them and conquer. But their legacy endures. Their art inspires Renaissance painters. Their arches shape modern engineering, and their religious rites linger in Catholic pomp. You're picturing a modern architect sketching a dome, unaware it echoes an Etruscan curve. Even their mystery, that uncracked language from the archive, keeps them alive in scholars' debates. As you sit on a broken column, dodging a loose pebble, clumsy strikes again, you feel their presence. The Etruscans didn't vanish. They dissolved into history's bloodstream, their innovations and quirks fueling Rome's rise and beyond. Their stories a reminder. Influence outlasts empires. You're not just seeing ruins, you're touching the roots of our world. Now, let's slow things down. Let the world soften around you. Picture yourself lying on a hillside under a Tuscan sky, stars winking above, the air cool and laced with wild thyme. The Etruscan story settles into your bones, not a tale of loss, but of quiet endurance. Their cities may have faded, their language locked away, but their spirit hums in every arch, every painted wall, every road that leads to Rome. You're safe here, wrapped in the warmth of history, where the past isn't gone, just resting. Feel your breath ease, your thoughts drift like clouds over those ancient hills. The Etruscans are with you, whispering through time, telling you to rest, to dream. Let their legacy cradle you, a gentle reminder that even in silence, influence lives on. Close your eyes, sink into the hum of the night, and let sleep carry you away.